I'm going to tell you a story, and it's going to involve a video game, and how that one video game can bring people together and complicate their lives. Oh, and maybe a hint of recursion. Welcome to All Your Lives Belong to Us, an Aurora Wasteland story by VaughnAshby. Episode 8, Momoa. A. Rain pelted the window of Momoa's truck as he brought it to a stop. Flashing lights lit the dark highway ahead of him. The red and blue flashes lit the dense trees that lined the road. Lightning crashed somewhere up on the nearby mountains, temporarily casting shadows of mythical creatures battling. Momoa sighed. He was going to be late. He hated being late, especially with her. He fidgeted with his radio dial. The sounds of the Beach Boys harmonized inside the cab of the truck. He hated this song after listening to some stupid podcast about it, but he sang along anyways, as his frustration continued to grow. He couldn't keep his eyes off the clock on the dashboard. He was supposed to meet his girlfriend at the top of the SkyTram in 30 minutes. The stupid tram only came every 15 minutes, and he still had 5 to 10 more minutes of driving to get there. Every second he sat there not moving inched him closer and closer to not making it there on time. And the last thing he wanted was to propose to his girlfriend after arriving late to meet her. It doesn't set a good precedent for her to say yes. The Beach Boys song ended, and another song Momoa equally hated followed it. His fingers tapped the wheel with increasing force, until finally he took a long slow breath in, and exhaled even slower. He thought about his happy place, which was naked in bed with a woman, though to be fair, he hadn't thought of other women since he started dating his current girlfriend, and hopefully his future wife. Serenity slowly spread through his body. He repeated his breathing practice. Momoa wasn't a big guy, but he acted like one. His temper was always right there, ready to flare up, and it didn't care who or what size person he was involved with. Bar fights used to be a common weekly thing, but he'd been working on himself, getting better for his woman, because unlike everything else in life, she was worth it. The brake lights from the car in front of Momoa flickered off, and the vehicle started to move. "Thank the nuts of Poseidon," Momoa muttered as he took his foot off the brake. His drive to the lower tram station was only 4 minutes thanks to his heavy foot. He prided himself on getting to places fast. For him, it was never about the journey. For him, it was about getting there fast and then telling everyone about it like he'd won a trophy doing it. The rain continued to pelt the car as Momoa threw his coat on and tapped his pants pocket. He could feel the ring he'd placed there from when he'd left the jewelry shop. It had been his last stop out of town, but it had been the first thing on his mind about the trip. He was going to propose on the top of the mountain. Sure, he'd hoped for clear skies and amazing views, but he'd happily take rain clouds and soggy underwear if it meant she'd marry him. With his raincoat on, Momoa ran from the truck to the ticket booth. He glanced up at the tram, or gondola, as he liked to call it, cable that vanished into the rain and fog halfway up the mountain. Again there was lightning, and again he could almost make out the shapes of two giant creatures fighting. He laughed to himself as he paid for his tram ticket, then proceeded to the boarding area. Momoa stood in the rain waiting. He checked his watch, then ran his fingers through his beard in an effort to try to remove the rainwater it was absorbing. He was amazed that he was able to make it here on time. Excitement coursed through him. He'd been waiting for this day since he'd first met her. Speaking of which, Momoa stood on his tiptoes and tried his best to scan the parking lot for her car, which he spotted near the front. She'd gotten here hours ago and hiked up to the top with her friend. The friend knew the proposal plan and worked with Momoa to make it happen. He hoped they made it to the top through the rain okay. After a short wait, a tram car emerged from the rain and docked at the boarding station. The people on board exited and Momoa boarded. He stood awkwardly in the middle of the car until the doors closed and he was the only one on board. There was a buzz, then the tram car started to move. The first couple of feet felt slow, then it quickly picked up speed. Soon, Momoa was soaring up the side of the mountain, trees below him, and the lower tram station vanishing into the rain clouds he was passing through. Alone in the tram car, he felt like he was taking a trip to another world. The clouds blocked everything. Then there was another flash of lightning, and for a brief second, he could see the upper tram station. His excitement was building with each inch towards her. He patted his pocket. Fuck, he loved her. The lights in the tram car flickered, came back on, then shut off. Momoa swayed as the movement of the tram car slowed and eventually stopped. High above the mountainside, deep inside a cloud, Momoa was alone, as the tramcar swayed in the rainy mountain storm. There was no emergency lights, and both the lower and upper tram stations were lost in the clouds. Momoa inched towards the side of the tramcar to see if there was an emergency phone or something he could use to call for help, but every step he took caused the tramcar to sway even more than it already was. He returned to the middle of the car and patted his pocket. The ring was still there, as was his cell phone. He felt like such an idiot for not thinking of using it sooner. Then, as he stared at the screen, he felt even more like an idiot for thinking that he would have cell coverage halfway up a mountain. His phone flickered between one bar and no bars. He had no idea what the phone number was for the tram company. There didn't seem to be one posted anywhere inside the tramcar, but he did spot an ad for the company, which had a website URL associated with it. He opened a web browser on his phone and waited for anything to load, which it didn't. He hit the refresh button and waited. Again, nothing happened. A strong gust of wind caressed the undercarriage of the tramcar, causing the car to swing like a kid on, well, a swing. The motion was nauseating. Momoa pulled up his messaging app, typed a message to his girlfriend, then hit send. He waited for the little checkmark that indicated that the message was sent. It never arrived. Lightning lit up the clouds around him and exploded against one of the tramcar towers. Sparks rained down on the forest below as something in the tower caught fire. Momoa yelped as the cable the tramcar was attached to loosened, leading to the car dropping a few feet in altitude before the cable caught him and the tramcar. Again, there was nausea, and Momoa dropped to the floor. His phone tumbled from his pocket. He lunged for it, and the tramcar swayed violently in response. Momoa checked his messaging app. Still no checkmark or reply. He typed another and hit send. Again, his phone did nothing but informed him that it was working on it. The rain intensified to a deafening level as it pelted the roof of the tramcar. Momoa got to his feet and glanced out the window. Drops the size of golf balls hammered the tramcar. Then, in the distance, there was light. Unlike the lightning Momoa had seen previously, this light was coming from the ground and expanding outwards, forcing its will on the rain as it rippled through it. To Momoa, it looked more like an explosion, but unlike anything he'd ever seen. The tramcar swayed in the wind, and as the light explosion hit him, the tramcar became horizontal in the blast. Momoa dropped to the floor that was now the side of the tramcar. The glass at his feet cracked below him as he stared at the tips of the trees below as they broke through the clouds. Cautiously, he inched off them and pulled his phone from his pocket. There were 2 check marks. His message had been received. 3 dots popped up on the screen. She was replying. Then, like most explosions, the shockwave retracted in on itself. Its urge to fill the void space it had created. The tramcar swung violently in the opposite direction, and again Momoa was face first into the glass on the side of the tramcar that was now the floor. Only this time, the tram cable tore free from the tower and pulled further towards the explosion site. All of this was bad, but Momoa knew the worst was still waiting for him. At some point, the forces from the explosion would cease, and gravity would regain control. With the cable car off the tower, that meant he would be meeting the trees below while still inside the tramcar. A fall from this height would end badly for all passengers in the car, and seeing as he was the only passenger, it would end badly for him. Momoa stared through the broken tramcar windows and heavy raindrops to the sky above him. It looked different. Some would say weird, but different was the only word that stuck in his mind. Then high above the clouds, a ripple formed, and the reality of the world Momoa knew and loved tore open, and everything changed. The tear sucked air, rain, and everything not nailed to the ground up into it. Somewhere, down near the lower tram station, the cable from the tram snapped free, and was sucked up high into the air into the tear. Once the cable was inside, it was only a matter of time. Wind and rain rushed past Momoa and the tram car as he screamed along the tram cable towards the ripple. The closer he got, the more obvious its attributes were, which is to say lack of them. The inside of the tear seemed to be nothing. No light, no rain, nothing. In fact, he couldn't even see the end of the tram cable. It vanished into nothingness. Momoa's phone buzzed in his pocket, a message as the tram car, along with him in it, vanished into the tear. B. The hum of the machines around the room was almost unbearable. Nick could feel his teeth vibrating. Maybe he did need to see a dentist. How had he gotten himself into all of this? He'd been one of Faraday's test subjects years ago. For what and why, he had no idea. But Lemon knew. Then somehow he forgot all of that, and Lemon died. Then he tried to drink himself to death, only to stumble across a message from Lemon in a video game she'd created, which led him to Gabby, which led him to Faraday, which led him to being a test subject again for your afterlife. Then he was here, wherever here was, though he was pretty sure he was in a video game. And he was dying over and over again because everyone was looking for Lemon. But he escaped with Gabby's help, except he wasn't sure if it was really Gabby or not. Then he got caught and trapped in some storage unit thing that let him connect back to Faraday before Faraday had even sent him to your afterlife in the first place. It was all so confusing. The massive holes in his memory didn't help either. But now, as he was just starting to figure things out, he was going to have it all erased again. The machines quieted as Remy rushed over to Nick, who was paralyzed and lying in a bathtub that had to have colonized new life forms on it from all the mold. "Sorry," Remy said, as he patted Nick on the head, as he moved past Nick to the foot of the tub. "I forgot the water. These old machines need it to work. It's like a lubricant or something." "Well, you don't want to forget lube when you're about to force yourself on me anally. Nobody wants dry anal, Remy, especially the unwanted kind." Remy laughed, then turned on the water and returned to whatever machine he was working on out of Nick's sight. Nick laughed. Ice cold water filled the bathtub. If Nick's balls could move, they'd have hidden up in his chest. "Little cold here, Rem," Nick yelled. "Yeah, I really don't care. That's going to affect my overall review of your hotel, and you know how the hospitality area lives and dies by its reviews. Killed in an ice bath by choking on his own balls, 1.5 stars. Remy sighed. "I'm going to be so happy to have my partner back." "Your partner? Like your life mate?" "No, you buffoon, my work partner. When I send you back, I'll get him in return. It's his body you're taking for a test drive." "Momoa?" Nick said to himself. "What did you say? How do you know his name? I thought you said you didn't remember anything. Do you know where Lemon is?" "That's a lot of questions. You have 2 minutes before the machine sends you back where you belong, and I think you're remembering more than you're letting on." "Momoa is your partner?" Nick asked. The water felt colder and colder as it inched up his body. "He was until you showed up. Is he a good guy?" "Yeah, he is. How do you know his name?" "We're in a video game, man. That has to be it," Remy grunted. "You're sticking with that? Still?" "I made him my character in the video game my wife, Lemon, made. I played as him when Nick trailed off as he remembered the character in Elysium called Remy. "What? You're in the game too? I fought you on the rooftop." "Don't think so, buddy," Remy replied as he moved around above Nick's head, checking the things Nick couldn't see. "I think I'd remember that." "It hasn't happened yet. In the game, it happens at the end." "Sorry to tell you, but this is the end. I'm sending you back. This is done. Over. In 30 seconds, you're gone and Momoa is back. Life will balance out, and I can go home to my kid." The noise in the room increased with each passing second. "But I have to ask you," Remy said, yelling now. "Lemon's your wife. She's real?" "What do you mean? Aren't you looking for her?" "I am, but..." Remy trailed off, lost in what he was doing. "I've never actually seen her. Not a picture or video or nothing. Her name is half whispered like a ghost. But at the same time, she's blamed for everything." Thousands of thoughts tried to force their way through Nick's head at the same time. Remy had never met her, let alone seen her. He didn't even know for sure if she was real. Was she real? Nick was pretty sure about that, but maybe she wasn't here. Had he been wrong this whole time? She died. He'd been there when it happened. What made her think she was alive here somehow? Was someone messing with him? Or was it just the video game making up a story for him as it went along? It was all too much. 10 seconds, Remy yelled, interrupting him. "See you later, bud." Did I miss all the fun?" Someone yelled from above Nick's head. He really hated being paralyzed. He did much better when he could, move. "Gabby. Sorry, thought you were off today after chasing this dingleberry around last night," Remy replied. "Plus, I have this whole personal connection with him, with my partner and all. I'm just sending him back. I just have to push this button. Everything is buffered and ready to go." "Well, seems kind of bad story plotting, don't you think?" Gabby laughed as she approached Nick in the bathtub full of ice. "What do you mean?" Remy replied as he checked his machine over. "What's a story? Do you mean like the news?" A laugh slipped from Nick. "It's totally like an action movie where the villain is all ready to go but for some reason doesn't push the doomsday button. The hero stops them, and the button is never pushed." "See, he gets it," Gabby said as she patted Nick on the head. "I'm here to watch or help if needed." "I'm good," Remy replied. "Grab a seat. It's strange to see you out of uniform, by the way. I'm so used to seeing you in that dress that..." "The dress." Remy continued to talk, but it was just background noise to Nick. She wasn't in her dress. That meant something. Someone had said something about that. Was it Faraday? Maybe Baker? Lime? Shit, on a memory stick, he couldn't remember who had said it. But he did remember they said if she's not in the dress, then it's Gabby, part of the team that sent him here. The Gabby from his side, the normal side, or whatever you want to call it. It wasn't the Gabby who perpetually killed him and then trapped him in that eye pack. Nick stared up at her as she and Remy blabbered on about something. He wasn't paying attention to what they were saying. No, he was staring at Gabby. There was something else about her. He could feel extra memories that he didn't have before. They involved her somehow. But he knew her even before the hotel, before the lab. They were something. Gabby glanced down for just a second and smiled at him. Nick smiled back. Suddenly, then there was shouting, and the room came back into focus. Sounds bombarded him. Remy was yelling at Gabby. "Put it down," Remy yelled at her. Nick's gaze moved from Gabby's face to her hand. There was something in it. A hammer. She had it raised over his head. "Please, I need my partner back." "I'm sorry," Gabby replied, as she brought the hammer in her hand down onto, then into, Nick's head, over and over again. The crisp bedsheet stuck to Nick's face as he lifted his head. A thick, ropey strand of drool connected him to it like an umbilical connection. He swatted it away. He was back in his hotel room. A. The porcelain felt warm against Momoa's skin as he opened his eyes and shook his head. He was in the bathroom stall. Why was he in the bathroom stall? He'd just been inside the tram car where all hell had been dumping on him. The last thing he remembered was... shit, what did he remember? He was on his way to see his girlfriend when the weather turned bad and... then nothing? He was here, wherever here was. Did he make it up to the tram? He couldn't remember. Shit, was he in the shitter? "You need to grab a plunger or something bigger," a voice Momoa didn't know called from inside the stall. Momoa muttered. "I'm just messing with you, buddy, but you okay? Don't hurt yourself in there by rushing." "It's just..." Momoa pulled his pants up and got to his feet. He patted his pocket. The ring was gone. The damn thing had been more than a few months' paycheck. He patted the other pockets, only to find he wasn't wearing what he thought he'd been wearing. A well-fitted, tailored black suit hung around him. When did he put this on? "You okay there, partner?" the voice said, an obvious tone of concern. Momoa shook his head, ran his fingers through his hair. What was going on? He opened the bathroom door to see a man he didn't really know smiling back at him. Like he should know. "You okay?" the man asked. "Maybe you need to eat more fiber. The sounds in there didn't sound natural." Momoa glanced in the bathroom mirror that ran the length of the wall, above multiple sinks. He'd expected to see his reflection, except he didn't. His hair was different. His beard, tattoos, and muscles were all gone. His body looked significantly downgraded. Momoa stared into the mirror, speechless. "You're starting to freak me out," the man said. "Listen, we're partners. You can tell your buddy Remy anything." "Remy?" "Yeah, it's my name. Did you hit your head in there? I think maybe you did it wrong. I'm so confused," Momoa said, still unable to take his eyes off the mirror. What the monkey nuts is going on? After a lengthy discussion and much confusion on both sides of their parts, Remy walked Momoa home and picked him up for work the next morning, which conveniently was all in the same building, the tower. Over the next weeks, then months, Remy had to remind Momoa of a lot of things. Over time, Momoa started to question if everything before had even been real. His life in the tower became comfortable and normal. His life from before became blurry and almost unreal. Well, except for one thing, his girlfriend. He could picture her crystal clear in his mind. She was real. He had been on his way to propose to her. Maybe. The crisp bed sheets stuck to Momoa's face as he lifted his head. A thick, ropey strand of drool connected him to it like an umbilical connection. He swatted it away, opened his eyes, and took in the room. Every morning he hoped he would be back in his house, back with her, but he was always here. And in a few minutes Remy would be knocking on his door and the two of them would set off on their work adventure for the day, which is always a mixed bag of things. Sometimes it was fixing electrical things. Momoa had been surprised at how fast he'd picked up the repair work. Other times it was cleaning up bodies. He'd also picked that up fast but still had reservations about it. The door rattled as Momoa got to his feet. He threw his suit on in seconds and opened the door before Remy could complete his second set of knocks. "You ready, buddy?" Remy asked. "My man, Remy, I was born ready," Momoa laughed, "but I really could use some coffee." Well, someone was recently departed last night in an apartment just down the hall from Coffee the Hut. We can make a stop on the way. You, sir, are the best non-sexual partner a guy could ever ask for. Thanks. Remy laughed as the two men left Momoa's apartment and set off for their first job of the day. Had Momoa known Fixer was a possible occupation when he was younger, he definitely would have directed his life towards it. He loved the variety it gave him. If someone or something needed something done, he made it happen. Clogged toilet, he fixed it. Broken air recycler, he fixed it. Need a body cleaned up, he fixed it. Turns out, everything was just a piece of a system, and he was understanding the system better and better with each passing day. After grabbing a coffee from Coffee the Hut, Remy led them to an apartment of the recently departed. The apartment door was open before they even arrived. Green tape with the word Fixer on it in vibrant white letters notified everyone to keep the fuck back. The two men ducked under the tape and stepped into the room. A man sat in the only chair in the room, which happened to be positioned right in the center. It was nice from what Momoa could tell. He could really use one like that back in his place. Well, except one without brains on it. The man's head had been blown apart from a close-range weapon discharge. "What a perfectly fine waste of a chair," Momoa muttered as he leaned in closer to examine the man's brains. "You think he did it? Seems like a crime against chairmanity. Or maybe a chairist attack?" Remy laughed. He leaned in and ran his fingers through the man's scattered brains. "Come on, man. That was funny." "No, it wasn't. But you were partly right in those words you call humor. It was a terrorist attack." "I was kidding, man. A terrorist attack here? Could it possibly—" "Lemon," Remy said as he straightened himself almost out of reverence for the word. "It's her M.O. Mo? Not Mo. M.O. Modus operandi." "You lost me," Momoa said as he took a drink of his coffee. "This is too grand, too elaborate. This guy, with his brains blowing out like this, it's a diversion. This doesn't happen here. She took something, or did something, or—" "Wait, is Lemon real?" Momoa said, interrupting Remy. "For real? I thought you were just yanking my dong with those stories." "Have you even been listening to what I've been telling you? She's public enemy #1. A shit, no, life disruptor. Things don't—" "Is he trying to scare you with those ghost stories about Lemon?" a woman said as she ducked under the Fixer tape, strutted over to Momoa, and leaned into his face for a deep, awkwardness-inducing kiss. "Spooky Lemon, the rogue god, you need a new partner," she said as she kissed Momoa's neck and flipped Remy the middle finger. "Grow up, Eden," Remy said as he finished his coffee and scooped some brains into it. "Lemon did this." "You gonna let him talk to your woman like that?" Eden said as she slapped Momoa's ass. "Just because he and I arrived on the same day, the guy has a thing for me." "Well, he is my partner," Momoa said. "Yeah, like I said, you need a new one. Maybe you and I can—" "Oh, darling, we'd never get any work done." "You gonna stop by tonight?" "Depends on work, but yeah, I'd like to. I had a lot of fun the other—" "Okay," Remy interrupted. "Time for work. We have brains to analyze. Bye, Eden." Eden gave him the middle finger and then leaned in to kiss Momoa. "Almost forgot. Here." She handed Momoa a small brown bag. "You got some breakfast?" "Thanks," Momoa said, as he smiled at her, then watched her ass as she left the room, then ducked under the tape. "I like her." "No shit. Can we?" Remy motioned to the body. "And she is real, by the way." "Lemon? What kind of name is that anyways?" Remy shrugged. "Beats me, but here's the thing. No one can find her." "Lemon." "Yeah. Are you even paying attention? She does shit like this, and other garbage all around the city. She'd been doing it since before we were partners, and no one can find her." "Rem. Buddy, it sounds made up. Just a story to keep everyone in line. Watch out for the scary Lemon," Momoa said in his best spooky voice. Remy rolled his eyes. "She's real, believe me. She is." The two men spent the rest of the day arguing about the existence of Lemon. After much back and forth, they agreed to never speak of it again. Like always, Remy walked Momoa home. The two parted ways exhausted from the day. Momoa closed the door behind himself and rested his back against it. He still had the brown bag with the breakfast Eden had made for him. He'd been too busy with work and arguing to eat it. but he'd carted it around with him everywhere he went. Momoa slid to the floor as he opened the bag and pulled the badly damaged bagel from it. The poor thing looked like it had lost a boxing match. But its looks didn't matter. Momoa was famished and took a massive bite out of it. He laughed as the crumbs rained down onto the carpet. He crunched up the brown paper bag and was about to toss it into the trash when he felt something else in the bag. He stuffed the bagel into his mouth, unwrinkled the bag, and peered inside. There was a piece of paper in it, which he pulled out and examined. It was a bus ticket for a Brightness Falls Aurora Wasteland monster tour, whatever that was. He turned the bus ticket over and over in his hands. Brightness Falls had been where he was in the tramcar. It was a national park in Canada. There was no Canada where he was now. At least he didn't think there was. He hadn't left the tower since he'd gotten here. Why had Eden given him this? Did she know he wasn't from here? Momoa pulled his way back to his feet, using the door as an aid. He placed the bus ticket down on the table next to the door, which had a pamphlet he'd never seen before. He poked it with his finger until the title of the company was visible. Your Afterlife. Someone had been in his room. Whatever, he didn't really care. He was exhausted from the day. This all seemed like a tomorrow problem. Future Momoa would have to deal with it. Momoa tossed the paper and face planted onto the bed. His eyes felt so heavy, he could feel the warm breaths of sleep there to cushion him off to dirty dreamland. Except no, there was something else. Something cold. Something he'd felt before. Momoa opened his eyes to see the bed vanish below him as he was being yanked upwards into the tear. Suddenly there was nothing, and he was landing on a dentist chair. Panic, pain, and confusion tore through Momoa's mind. Where the fuck was he? Who were these people? People yelled and rushed towards him. They needed to stay back. He needed space. This wasn't supposed to be happening. Someone touched his arm, and all those bar fights he used to get in before he met his girlfriend resurfaced. He tore the arm off the dentist chair he sat on and drove the end into the back of the closest head he could reach. The woman's body collapsed onto the floor. The piece of metal exited out where her eye used to be. She mumbled something as her body convulsed and dropped to the floor.
257. 257.
B. The small blue dots that looked almost like stars stared back at him. He hated this room, this building, and the world, or whatever it was. He hated it all. He just wanted to be with Lemon, and he couldn't. Everything seemed to be standing in his way, and he had no idea what to do about any of it. What was he supposed to do now? Nick got to his feet and paced back and forth around the room, which seemed to be back to normal, before the wall was blown apart, and the stack of his own bodies were gone. He assumed he didn't have long. Remy knew where his room was. He knew where he would respawn, or whatever he wanted to call it. Fuck them. He had to be in a video game. He had to be in Elysium. He'd spent months playing the game. Why didn't he know what to do here? What would he do if he was playing at home, sitting on his couch? He plopped himself down on the edge of the bed and stared at the TV screen. His reflection stared back at him through the black mirror. He looked like himself again, except he turned his head to the side, and like some sort of magic eye, now he saw Momoa. He turned his head and saw his own reflection again. Did other people see him like that? Was it all in his head? Or a glitch in the game? Game. Was that what he was really going to do? Assume this was all a game? A game Lemon had made for him? Why would she make a game that tortured him like this? Why weren't they on a beach somewhere sipping fancy fruity drinks? Why put him through all of this? Whatever. Okay, assuming it was a game, and people could see him as Momoa and himself, what should he do? What would Momoa do? The TV screen with its stats on sat next to the one the game console was connected to. Nick quickly glanced at the stats. The number of times killed was embarrassing, though not as much as awkward boner count, which sat at 1. He didn't remember getting one, but he was certain it had happened. He sighed. The stats screen was useless. He leaned closer from the bed to the TV and punched the boner count. The screen flickered and reacted to his touch, prompting a web browser to open. That was new. If only Nick turned to glance at the small table next to the door. He remembered there being a piece of paper there with a URL for a website on it. Nick grunted, jumped to his feet, grabbed the note, and returned to the TV screen that he now knew was a touch screen. He typed the website address in carefully. With each letter he typed, he remembered more and more of what Lemon had told him about the Aurora Wasteland, that it was an area of concentrated, strange phenomena. He'd always thought the Bermuda Triangle was cheesy. This seemed to be the same, or worse. He added the .com at the end and double-checked the spelling, aurorawasteland.com, then pressed enter, and a spinning icon appeared. Lemon had shown the Aurora Wasteland website to him only once. He'd kind of acted like a dick about it. He did want to humor her about being interested in it, but he didn't want to hurt her feelings. Though he did manage to. He was sure of it. The website loaded and looked almost the same as he remembered. There was a map of the region. Only this map looked like the game map of Elysium, and where there would normally be pins related to the strange and weird phenomenon. There were pins for events related to Lemon. Nick hummed and scratched his head. What did they think Lemon was over here? She was just his wife, not some fringe paranormal science event. Nick's eyes bounced around the screen. He didn't have much time, and this was a lot to take in. He noticed that next to each pin was someone's name. It seemed to be a combination of who the creator was or who did the investigation into it. It didn't take long for Nick to stumble across one that said Momoa. He investigated a murder it was believed Lemon had caused. Nick clicked the pin. An image of a man whose head had been blown apart stared back at him. Gross, Nick mumbled, as he took in the website post. There wasn't a lot there, but wait, the pin was investigated by Momoa, but posted by Gabby. He wondered why Gabby's name was the same on both sides. Was it a coincidence? Couldn't be. Nothing here seemed to be coincidence. The phone on the bedside table rang, startling Nick. Had that phone always been there? He couldn't remember. It had to be Remy, maybe Gabby, possibly Faraday, or... Nick dove for the phone, which seemed to be a classic 80s model. Coiled phone cord, black, and a cable connecting it to the wall. Nick slammed the receiver to his ear. "Hello?" he said, in a combination question and statement. "Nick?" Tears streamed down Nick's face. He tried to wipe them away, but more followed. "Lemon?" Nick asked as his nose joined in the excitement. "Is it really you?" "I love you, Nick," Lemon said, her own tears and sobs echoing over the phone line. "I love you too," Nick replied, his brain unable to process what was happening. "You died. And we're talking. How's that possible? Where are we? I've missed you so much, and..." "Nick," Lemon said, "listen, something's happened. I need your help. Anything. Get to the roof," Lemon said, as the phone line went silent. "Lemon?" The phone gave no reply. "Lemon!" Still nothing. Nick dropped the phone and sprinted out of his room. The hallway was brighter than he remembered. Did they keep the hotel rooms dark just to fuck with people's eyes as they left? "Get back in your room," a voice that sounded all too familiar said. It was the guy who had killed him the first time he'd left his hotel room. Nick ignored the man as he sprinted down the hallway, away from him. The man opened fire. Pieces of the hallway exploded around Nick as he ran away from the man, and what he hoped was towards Lemon. Hey. Imani and Simon rushed over to Maggie's body. The back of her head was crushed and laid just below the lab's viewing area. Maggie's body was lifeless. She wasn't breathing. Her heart wasn't beating. She was dead. "What the fuck?" Simon yelled as he grabbed a broken piece of computer and rushed towards Momoa, who just stared at them all. "I'm not Nick," he repeated over and over again. Why was he here again? His head hurt. He remembered being here before, but it was blurry. He couldn't remember how he got here, but foggy images of him destroying the lab he was standing in tried to fill his head. Everything from where he was and how he got here seemed too fuzzy. He thought for a second. Maybe he was home. Maybe he had a girlfriend. Momoa patted his pants pocket where he kept the ring on the night he was going to propose to Maggie. Momoa yelled as he pushed past Simon and sprinted towards Maggie's body. What had he done? What was she doing here? Momoa pulled her body close to him. He wanted to cry, but anger and frustration bubbled up. "What the hell is going on?" he said as he pulled Maggie in closer. In the center of the room, the dentist chair he kind of remembered sitting on was smoldering. It seemed to just be this side of catching fire. "Where am I?" Momoa yelled. "My head is killing me. My beautiful Maggie is dead. If I don't get an answer soon, Take a breath, big guy. Imani said as she placed a hand on Momoa's shoulder. What do you remember? I was going to propose to my girlfriend Maggie. Momoa leaned in and kissed her cheek. I was going to propose. I was on the tram ride up the side of the mountain. Then, I don't remember what happened. But I was in the bathroom and some guy named Remy was calling me his work partner, and I was living in this building they called the tower, and I was there for a while. Then I went to bed, and then I was here. But I might have been here before and broke some things, and... Yeah, you fucking did, Simon said as he tossed the pieces of broken computer across the lab. No, fuck you, my Maggie is dead. No, fuck you, I can't see my son again. No, fuck both of you, Imani said as she eased the building tension between the two men. Let's take a breather here. Did you say tram ride? Like the one in Brightness Falls Park? You know it? You were part of the accident there. Accident? Tram cars came off the cable. And the cable came off the tower. It was terrible. You don't remember? I remember a storm. Do you remember anything else before that? Just my normal life, Momoa sniffed, showing his first signs of breaking down. My life with Maggie. Well, fuck, Simon said, interrupting. He's from here. What do you mean? Imani asked. He's from here. Nick's from the other side. How is that possible? Co-oping, a woman said as she stepped through the doors to the lab, the same ones Maggie had come through only a minute or so earlier. I'm with her. Came with her, actually, in more ways than one, the woman said as she motioned to Maggie. My name's Aurora. Maggie, sorry about the death and all. What's co-oping? Imani asked. It's when two people exchange places. Exchange places? With where? Simon asked. The other side. The other side. Oh, that's helpful. How did you get in here? How does it work? Imani asked as she interrupted Simon, who threw his hands in the air in frustration. If you're experienced enough, you can do it on a whim. Trigger an exchange, that is. My friend. Aurora glanced down to see Gabby's head next to Simon. Shit. My friend Gabby over there could do it whenever she wanted. Gabby, Simon said, almost laughing. Naive computer nerd Gabby? She could just jump to the other side, he said, as he used air quotes for the other side. She could. Wow, a lot of dead ex-lovers in this room, Aurora said as she winked at Imani, who in turn glanced over to Birch, who was just taking all this in from across the room. But it's all good. How's that? Momoa asked as he squeezed Maggie in his arms. Well, if you die here and you've co-opted over there, then there is a good chance you'll pop up over there after you've died. Kinda cool. Not sure if it works the other way around or not. I mostly end people from over there anyway. Speaking of which, Aurora said as she pulled a gun that had been tucked into the back of her pants and fired a single shot across the lab into Birch. Imani screamed as she jumped to her feet, only to see Birch's body folding in on itself into a puddle of black tar-like substance on the floor. Birch! Imani screamed as tears erupted from her face. That's about it, Aurora said as she tucked the gun back again. Imani screamed and rushed over to where Birch used to be. Momoa glanced over at Simon, who shared a look with him. The all too familiar by this point, this is all fucked up look, only to have the looks cut short by Simon's phone ringing, and him in turn answering it. The room felt like utter chaos. Imani with Birch, Simon on his phone, and Momoa with his dead girlfriend. What was she doing here? This was all way too much over his head. Maybe it was all a dream. He kind of remembered lying on a bed. He'd gotten something from Eden before he'd left. Something with the breakfast she'd gave him. A bus ticket. That was real. But this also felt real. Momoa grunted and pulled Maggie close, kissing her cheek again. You okay? Aurora asked as she crouched down next to him in Maggie's body. Is it true? Momoa asked. Which part? That she might be alive on the other side? Yeah, she might be. Like you, she's been there. But I don't know how it all works exactly. I've never been. I'm just a paid contractor doing what I was paid to do. Which was? Get her. Aurora motioned to Maggie's body. Here. Did you know she would die? No, I had no idea. Because Momoa trailed off as he noticed Simon behind Aurora climbing into the mostly decimated dentist chair that he had arrived on. What are you doing? Imani asked from across the room. It's been fun, Simon said as he leaned over and tapped a few keys on the nearby keyboard. Wait, Imani said as she sprinted towards the machine. You can't. It's okay, Simon replied. He's there. Who? My son, Simon said as tears streamed down his face. Imani stomped as the machine took over. Around the room, sparks popped and fires ignited. "You didn't get an ejection, let me..." "It's okay," Simon said, as the tear opened above him. "It's okay," he repeated over and over again, as if he was convincing himself. The room shook as Simon was torn apart and pulled into the opening, one piece at a time. Hey, my name is VaughnAshby. I wrote this. If you liked what you heard, head on over to VaughnAshby.com/free and pick up a free novel or a bunch of other free stuff. Go explore the Aurora Wasteland yourself at AuroraWasteland.com. Don't forget to check out the Stories from the Wasteland podcast and search for VaughnAshby on YouTube for video versions and other exciting videos. Thanks for listening.